You're watching the News on 6, judged best newscast in Oklahoma by the Associated Press.
Not so long ago, it was a land without rules.
A place of great hazard and heartache. And even today, there are those who maintain the best way to travel through the Oklahoma Panhandle is quickly. But Oklahoma traveler Scott Thompson and photojournalist Grant Gerondale slowed down and looked around. Turns out they found beauty, human and otherwise, of no man's land.
To find the heart of a place, stand and look in all directions. Sniff the air. Reach down and grab a handful of grass. Ponder your place in the world. Do that in the Oklahoma Panhandle and you will suddenly feel very small. This is where the sky, shaded the most glorious blue, stretches on forever until it meets the butterscotch winter grasses of the high plains, and there they disappear together below the horizon. This is a place of great extremes and great distance, time marked by searing sun and wicked wind, distance to the nearest neighbor measured in miles. Those few who live here are closer because of that.
The behavior of people toward one another out here is very important to me, and I think one of the important assets of the region.
Ken Turner oversees the collection that tells the story of the Panhandle at the No Man's Land Museum, of the outlaws and Indians and ranchers who shaped life here.
There are still people who come out here that can't wait to go away because they can't stand the sense of openness and isolation.
Randall Bensch went away for 13 years, brought a meteorology degree back home, and set up shop in the old Logan post office.
Just about every little town around here has been hit by a tornado. It shows you that they're rather common. And
he built a fiberglass thunderstorm and a cotton ball cold front, teamed them with a tornado lamp.
The tornado lamp is nice, except it has one problem. It rotates the wrong direction. It's a southern hemisphere tornado.
If you've got a few moments, Randall will show you one of the thousands of tornadoes he's got on video.
I saw this particular tornado when it occurred May 15th, 1991.
He'll give you a forecast if you're traveling through.
Yeah, wind shifting to the north, turning a little cooler. They're made in El Reno, Oklahoma. Oh, so it's an Oklahoma product. It says Oklahoma Twister right here on the top.
And Randall pays homage to the 38 blizzard and the 35 dust storm. Panhandlers know the weather can be friend or foe.
It's part of our heritage.
When government treaty makers and surveyors were carving up the West with state and territorial boundaries, something odd happened. A huge rectangle of land was mistakenly forgotten, left out.
The real reason people called this no man's land primarily was because it was no man's land. No one could own it.
There was no law, no government, for 50 years, until no man's land was stuck onto Oklahoma territory. Hal Clark's grandfather arrived in 1877 when cattle ranchers were trying to establish themselves on the barren plains. 2/3 died or gave up within 4 years of moving here. But not Hal Clark's grandfather. And now the family cattle wear the oldest brand in the Panhandle. Do you sometimes feel as if you're forgotten out here?
Well, sometimes we get that feeling. Sure do. I had one fella interestingly say, he said, maybe we ought to just swing the Panhandle loop down tight on the west side of Oklahoma, so we'd be a little closer to Oklahoma City.
They are closer here to the state capitals of Denver and Santa Fe than to their own. And in the crossroads of Kenton, at about the spot Oklahoma runs out, they are behind the times by an hour.
Well, it's 1:25, and the rest of Oklahoma is 2:25 right now. So we're just on mountain time. Always has been, hasn't it, Billy?
That's Billy Bullard, the mail carrier from Clayton, New Mexico, in for lunch, who says working 2 time zones doesn't bother him.
No, not me.
This is the only Oklahoma city on Mountain Standard Time.
It's a village. It's not a very big city. About 45 people, isn't it, Betty?
And like other places in the Panhandle, folks learn to adjust. life's not taken so serious. Here were the mastodon tusks mixed with the butterfingers and baby Ruths, and the library comes in a box.
If I call a beauty shop or the doctor's office and make an appointment, when they say 2 o'clock, I write down 1 o'clock.
For all its desolation today, the Panhandle was once witness to one of the greatest adventures of American history. In the 19th century, a branch of the West's major trade route, the Santa Fe Trail, passed through here. The trail still visible where the grass grows a darker color, and still held in honor by the locals.
Coffee and tea.
We made a meeting of trail boosters, a chili supper, and slideshow by Nebraskan Les Vilda, who has twice walked the length of the trail.
I saw this, the sun was shining just moments before.
Interesting on a screen, fascinating at Dan Sharp's ranch.
We have recorded, I think, 323 names.
Cold Springs Creek never runs dry here, so the great caravans of the Santa Fe Trail made it a point to stop, and they would carve their names on the rock bluff.
So, but anyway, the thing is, if you have spare time, whether you're fixing harness or playing with the oxen or whatever, you might have went over and put your name on the rock.
The soldiers and the merchants and the roustabouts left a bit of themselves behind here to remind us of Indian attacks and cholera and loneliness.
More than likely, this was 2 or 3 at one time, and they just wrote it out to be one depression.
And then Dan took us to the farthest reaches of his spread, and there we stood in the ruts of the trail they left and wondered of the great wagon trains that preceded us by a century and a half.
Interesting to think of all the fortunes and hopes and dreams that rode on this road.
And that's the main thing we try to get across the younger kids that come out and and see the rock and stuff, and then we show pictures and stuff too. Is once you can see a picture of a person that actually was on the trail, and you can get across to them that they had hopes and dreams and laughed and cried just like the rest of us. Well, then it's not just a name and a date. Well, it becomes real to them.
Laughter and tears and dreams have always stitched this place together. Courage and grit provided the ballast. And come day's end, given a lucky few like Ken Turner the chance to spy the Milky Way, count falling stars, and be glad the sky never ends over a place called No Man's Land.
That sort of opportunity is, I think, important to us in our everyday lives. Each day I feel a little bit more part of nature, if you will, because I'm overwhelmed by the universe when I step outside.
Scott Thompson, the Oklahoma Traveler.